Hey, welcome everyone.
Hey, this is my craziest video yet. I am going to go through 3 different models showing you how insane Tesla's share price could be, how crazy, amazing Tesla could change the world, accelerate the transition to sustainable energy, make ridiculous profits, and drive the share price to levels you would not believe. Unbelievable. I don't believe it. I think I'm probably crazy, but the models make sense to me. I'm sure there are flaws in these models, so please go through this video and pick it apart. Tell me in the comments why you think I'm wrong and get me back to numbers that are realistic, because I am going to tell you right now, I believe the Tesla share price in 2030 will be more than $100,000 a share. I know it's crazy, but check out these models and tell me what you think. Ready? Let's go. I'm going to look at this 3 different ways. The first way is how a lot of Wall Street and retail investors are looking at Tesla, looking at vehicle production, looking at gross margins. This is what we see particularly from Hyperchange. I'm a huge fan of Hyperchange.
It's going to be epic. We've been just so much to cover. Anyway, let's just get into it. Welcome to the world of hypercharts. Here we are with vehicle deliveries.
I think he too closely mimics the Wall Street analysis approach. I love his channel. I love his analysis. And as much as an optimist I think he is, I think he's understating the Tesla case. But you see it from a lot of Wall Streeters. This is how many vehicles they're going to produce. This is what their margins are. I think that misses the Tesla story. That misses where this is going. So the second way I'm going to talk about it is the way I've been talking about it before, but I'm going to extrapolate these numbers out to 2025 and 2030. I'm going to give you some hard numbers. I did my own spreadsheet. This is the Robotaxi model. This is how many Robotaxis Tesla will produce by year, how many Robotaxis they will own on the theory that Tesla will own its own Robotaxis, how much profit they will make per Robotaxi, how much that adds up to, and what that means for market cap and share price. And the third approach is something novel that I'm just working on now myself. I'm trying to work this through. It's dollars per kilowatt hour. This is the idea that Tesla is really at its core a battery company, and that everything else springs off battery production, that Tesla is battery constrained, so they are limited in how much money they can make and how much they can accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. They are limited by battery production. So battery production is the ultimate driver of Tesla's profits and of our society's move off of fossil fuels onto more sustainable forms of energy. So I'm going to look at it in terms of dollars per kilowatt hour. This goes towards my thesis that the long-run Tesla Robotaxi will be smaller and will use smaller battery packs. But I'm going to get into this. Again, first we're just going to talk about vehicle production and profit per vehicle, what I consider a more simplistic Wall Street type analysis. Then we're going to go to the Robotaxi model, and last we're going to talk about the battery model.
Release the Titan.
So let's start with the standard Wall Street type analysis. Let's look at how many vehicles Tesla's going to produce and how much money they'll make per vehicle if they just sell the vehicles. And then what does that mean in terms of profit per year, and what does that mean in terms of market cap and share price? I'm going to start with the assumption, this is a big assumption and it's an aggressive assumption. Remember, this is the bull case, that Tesla's growth will be 50% a year out into 2030. That Tesla will continue producing more and more vehicles.
Elon has mentioned a 50% compound annual growth target for Tesla in the past. Is this still in line with Tesla's ambitions for the next 5 to 10 years?
I think 50% is the likely number. It's possible that it's 40%. I would be very shocked if it's less than 40%, even with force majeure, short of World War III.
This is an aggressive case, and the numbers I'm going to come up with are going to be even bigger than where you think I might be going. And we're going to have to temper that with the reality that at some point there probably will be some limitation on where we're going. I'm going to start with the assumption that 2021 involves 1 million vehicles produced. I think this is actually an understatement of how many vehicles that Tesla will produce. I expect they will produce 500,000 vehicles out of Fremont alone. They will be in the ballpark of maybe 500,000 vehicles produced in Shanghai. Berlin is going to produce a lot of vehicles. It may approach 500,000, but let's say 200,000. Texas will produce vehicles. I think we're going to see Tesla produce 1.5 million vehicles in 2021, but I'm stating it as a million. And I understand that's aggressive because a lot of projections are for 750,000 vehicles in 2021. I don't think it matters a whole lot when you go down the road, but I want to give some sense of where I think this is going. Let's start with the assumption that Tesla produces 1 million vehicles in 2021, that they make a profit of $5,000 per vehicle. Maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 6,000. I'm just trying to work with a number here. I believe that they're getting margins up, they're getting costs down. We're looking at a ballpark of a 20% margin on a $40,000 vehicle. That's more than $5,000 profit per vehicle. So let's go with 5,000.
The thing that's really going to have a profound effect on our financials is high volume and high margin. That high margin part comes from autonomy. Do people buy the full self-driving package or not? As we get closer to full self-driving, that's just going to become more and more compelling. From a financial standpoint, that's the real mind-blowing situation, is high volume, high margin because of autonomy.
At $5,000 profit per vehicle and 1 million vehicles produced, that's $5 billion in profit. For market cap, you would look at the price-earnings ratio. You'd say, okay, they made $5 billion. Keep in mind, I don't think in the short run Tesla will actually earn $5 billion in profit. I think Tesla is suppressing their profits in order to increase growth. But 20% margins, $50,000 vehicle will be a $10,000 profit per vehicle. But I don't think it's crazy to talk about $5,000 per vehicle profit. But the price-earnings ratio is what matters here when you're trying to determine market cap. How much is the company worth? When you have a company that's stable, that's not growing particularly, you might see a price-earnings ratio of 10. When you have a company that's growing well, you're looking at a price-earnings ratio of 20. When you get to companies that are growing very fast, you can see very high price-earnings ratios of 30 or more. That is the price of the company over the earnings, the ratio there. So I don't think 30 is an unreasonable price-earnings ratio for a fast-growing company. So if we assume a price-earnings ratio of 30 and $5 billion of profit, we get to a market cap for Tesla of $150 billion, which is actually less than the current market cap. At that valuation, Tesla is worth $750 a share in 2021. Now, you could say, wait a minute, they're making more than $5,000 a vehicle. They're making $10,000 a vehicle. If you did that, you'd have $10 billion in profit. You'd have a $300 billion market cap, which is about where we are now, and a share price of around $1,500. The share price is assuming there are 200 million shares. I think there's 180 million right now, but we're expecting some dilution, some additional shares to be created. So I'm using 200 just as a shorthand. This is a simplified analysis. Going forward, the key here is we're looking at 50% growth year over year. So in 2022, Tesla produces 1.5 million vehicles. In 2023, it's 2.25 million vehicles. In 2025, that's 5 million vehicles produced. If you're only making $5,000 in profit per vehicle and you produce 5 million vehicles, you get $25 billion in profit. With a price-earnings ratio of 30 and $25 billion of profit, you're looking at a $750 billion market cap, approaching $1 trillion market cap. And the Tesla share price is around $3,800 a share in 2025. If you say, wait, we're making $10 million a vehicle, that shoots up to a $1.5 trillion market cap and $7,500 share price. Again, this is using what I consider to be the conservative Wall Street approach to how Tesla's profits, pricing, profits per vehicle translate to profits overall, market cap, and share price. You continue on this path of 50% increase in vehicle production. You get to 7.5 million vehicles in 2026. You get to 11 million vehicles in 2027. You get out to 2030 and it's 38 million vehicles produced. And if you're only making $5,000 a vehicle at 38 million vehicles, you're talking about nearly $200 billion in profit for Tesla. At a price-earnings ratio of 30, that's a nearly $6 trillion market cap and a share price of $28,000 a share. more than $28,000 a share. If you assume that Tesla's improved their efficiencies and they've managed to turn it to a $10,000 profit per vehicle, it's a market cap of over 11 trillion and a share price of nearly $60,000 a share. These are really aggressive numbers, I know, but I think they actually understate the Tesla bull case of where this is going. I should talk for a second. There are things that are going to limit Tesla's growth. In theory, competition will arise. I don't see it yet. I see Tesla being in the lead. Volkswagen just said Tesla is 10 years ahead. I think that other car companies are going to collapse. I think Tesla is going to be one of the few remaining car companies, and the other car companies will be supplying the internal combustion engine market, which will be shrinking. It is the electric vehicle market, and Tesla is dominating it, and no one is coming along so far who is close to adopting Tesla's model, which is the machine that builds the machine. No one is talking about, people are talking about making electric vehicles. Tesla's talking about making the machine that builds the machine. I've given you the rough Wall Street style bull case for where this would go. Tesla rapidly increases production, makes a certain reasonable profit per vehicle, and they get to a share price of somewhere between $25,000 and $60,000 a share by 2030. That's a pretty good bull case, but it understates it. So let's talk about the Robotaxi model. I made videos about this before. This is a somewhat radical theory. Elon has hinted that this is where we're going, that Tesla will stop selling cars, that Tesla will produce its own robotaxis, it will keep them itself, and it will operate its own robotaxi network with its own vehicles.
Any locations where there's not enough supply for sharing, Tesla will just make its own cars and add them to the network in that place.
That is where I think this is going, and that is the model I'm about to go over with you. We'll go with the same assumptions about vehicle production, that vehicle production will increase at 50% a year. The battery model I'm going to talk about later is going to go with some different assumptions, but let's just go with this now. 50% a year increase in production, starting with 1 million vehicles produced in 2021. I don't believe Tesla is going to stop selling cars in 2021. I think the stopping the sale of cars is going to happen 2022, 2023, somewhere like that, that Tesla will begin, once FSD goes live, once the Robotaxi network goes live, the price of a Tesla vehicle goes to $200,000 or $300,000 a vehicle. And very few people will buy them. Tesla will keep them. Tesla will operate them as robotaxis. This is the plan. I understand you may think it's crazy. Check out my earlier videos. Tesla will stop selling cars. I think it explains it. I think it makes perfect sense. And Elon has hinted at least that that's where they're going. Same projections, 1 million robotaxis produced in 2021. 2023, it's 2.25 million vehicles produced. 2025, it's 5 million vehicles produced. And 2030, it's 38 million vehicles produced. Now, this assumption is off a little bit that I'm going to make right now, that Tesla keeps every vehicle it produces. So instead of basing this on the vehicles produced that year, it's based on the accumulated production. And really, to make this analysis fair, and I didn't do my numbers this way, you would probably deduct all the vehicles from 2021 from this analysis and a lot of the vehicles from 2022. But because the vehicle production is growing at 50% a year exponentially, that's a small portion of the vehicles, and it's a trivial impact on the ultimate analysis. But let's go with it. It's an assumption. It's a model. I know it's not perfect. Elon stated at Autonomy Day a projection that that each robotaxi would produce $30,000 a year in profit.
If you say, what would be the probable gross profit from a single robotaxi? We think probably something on the order of $30,000 per year. And we're designing the cars for a 1 million mile life as well. In nominal dollars, that would be a little over $300,000 over the course of 11 years. It might be higher. I think these consumptions are actually relatively conservative.
Elon said it at Autonomy Day that a typical robotaxi would produce $30,000 a year in profit. Some complicated analysis to that. It's not really that complicated. I think it's actually going to be higher than that, at least at the beginning. But I'm going with, for this particular approach right now, a $30,000 a year profit per vehicle. So assume Tesla builds 1 million vehicles, 1 million robotaxis, and operates them itself. 1 million vehicles making $30,000 in profit a year, that's $30 billion a year in profit from operating the robotaxi network with 1 million vehicles. At a market cap based on a price earnings ratio of 30, that is a $900 billion market cap. It is a $900 billion market cap. It is a Tesla share price of $4,500 a share. I want to stress again, this is accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. These million vehicles are taking 5 million or more internal combustion engine vehicles off the road, eliminating that pollution. It is shifting millions of trips from gasoline-powered or diesel-powered trips to electric-powered trips. That is making our world a better place. Whether you believe in climate change or not, reducing pollution, there's all kinds of other pollution coming out of those tailpipes. This is a great thing. But that's only the beginning. You go to 2022, it's 1.5 million vehicles produced, but you add that to the first million vehicles, so now you have 2.5 million robotaxis running, making $30,000 a year in profit, $75 billion in profit for Tesla. Price earnings ratio of 30, it's a $2.25 trillion market cap and an $11,000 share price, and we're only in 2022. I'm not talking about Tesla Energy. I'm not talking about the money Tesla might make from selling video game services or other services inside the car. There's a lot of theories about how else Tesla might make money from its Robotaxi network, from its vehicles that have this software enabled. I'm not talking about any of that because I think that type of income is trivial compared to the Robotaxi network. The Tesla team, Elon and Zach, said that in the conference call. Yes, there's other software revenue potential, but the Robotaxi revenue potential outstrips everything.
And right now, by far, FSD is just overwhelmingly the most important thing. Everything else is pretty small by comparison. Now, when things do become full self-driving, so what are people going to do in the car? Well, I guess they're probably going to do productivity and entertainment of some kind. You know, watch movies, play games, and do work.
Yeah, FSD remains by far and away the biggest opportunity in the near term, but we're putting the plumbing in place to be ready to scale other areas when the time is right. So premium connectivity subscription is something that we've put in place, and the ability to upgrade your vehicle through the app, for example, on acceleration boost, or upgrading a standard range Model 3 to a standard plus, adding rear heated seats. So these are things that we have, and we're continuing to get feedback from the field on other things that we can launch, and we'll trickle those in with time.
Yeah, but they're all very tiny compared with, like the step change to full self-driving, depending upon how you calculate it, is probably worth at least $100,000 per car. So that's a lot of software you'd have to sell.
Tesla Energy could be a lot of revenue, and I didn't factor that in. If you follow some people's views, that's going to be big too. So I'm being conservative by leaving out the money from Tesla Energy. Let's take this out to 2025. Tesla produces 5 million vehicles in 2025. You add that to all the robotaxis that were produced in the 4 preceding years, and you get to 13 million Tesla robotaxis operating on the roads. If each Tesla robotaxi is making $30,000 a year in profit, now you're talking about $395 billion in profit for that year from operating the robotaxi network alone. Nearly $400 billion in profit. At a price earnings ratio of 30, that is $12 trillion market cap. That is a $60,000 share price. $12 trillion market cap, $60,000 share price. I want to get into that limiting factor thing again. At some point, I believe that Tesla will have to lower the price of rides in its robotaxi network, but I think that's a long ways away. Currently, it costs in the ballpark of $2 to $3 a mile to use an Uber. These numbers are predicated on Tesla charging only $1 a mile for the rides, which is a big, big drop from what Uber and Lyft are charging. And I believe there's a lot of people who are going to be thrilled to not have to own a car and be able to ride around at $1 a mile. It's going to save 20% of the population of the first world, of the United States and Europe and Japan and Australia, even places like South Korea. It's going to save a lot of people so much money that they're going to be happy to jump into a robotaxi and not have to worry about taking care of a car. I don't think this level of robotaxis, 13 million robotaxis, which replaces about 65 million internal combustion engine cars, or maybe 100 million, that's not enough to hit the point where prices are going to fall but I do think they will fall eventually. So that's another thing that's going to limit the numbers we're going to head to. But let's skip forward. 2027, Tesla produces 11 million vehicles. There's a total of 32 million robotaxis in their stable. By 2030, Tesla producing 38 million robotaxis, Tesla would have over 100 million robotaxis operating on the roads. Assuming they make $30,000 in profit a year, I'm going to give you more conservative numbers in a minute, but assuming they make $30,000 a year in profit per vehicle, per robotaxi, that's $3.4 trillion in profit in 2030. That is a market cap of $100 trillion and a share price of $500,000. Going to that limiting factor we were talking about, let's change the assumptions. Let's say Tesla only makes $20,000 a vehicle. $20,000. Prices have come down and Tesla only makes $20,000 a year in profit on its robotaxi network. If you drop it to $20,000 a year, then profit in 2025 is only $263 billion. The market cap is only $8 trillion, and the share price is only $40,000. Only. In 2030, it's a $2.2 trillion annual profit, a $68 trillion market cap, and a share price of $340,000. If you go further and you say, you know what, there's going to be so much competition, there's going to be so much pressure on Tesla's pricing for its robotaxi network, they're only going to make $10,000 a vehicle in 2030. Okay, that's only an annual profit of $1.1 trillion. It's only a market cap of $34 trillion, and it's only a share price of $170,000. If you buy into the robotaxi model, then a $170,000 share price in 2030 is a conservative estimate. You're looking at a share price in 2025 of $20,000. That's assuming a lot of the limiting factors come into play and reduce Tesla's profits and ultimately reduce market cap and share price. And that's not even getting into the battery model that I'm going to talk about next. Hang on, hold on to your seats. It's coming. It's not going to be that much bigger than the robotaxi model I described, but it is going to be bigger. So the third model is something completely different. This is something that I've been stewing on for a while. I talked about it in a recent interview. I think the way we're thinking about Tesla misses where the company is really going. It's not a car company. It's not a robotaxi company either, although that's the model I just used, which I found really compelling. But another way of looking at Tesla is as a battery company. The really big change, the software for self-driving is a huge change. That's a monstrous change. But Tesla is producing a ridiculous increase in battery availability. And the battery production is going through the roof. The number of lithium-ion batteries, the kilowatt hours or megawatt hours or gigawatt hours of battery production in the world was much smaller, and Tesla is going to accelerate it extremely rapidly. And Elon has repeatedly mentioned, and not just Elon, the Tesla team repeatedly talks about batteries as the constraint on the things that Tesla wants to do to grow revenue, to grow profit, and to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy.
Does this shift from smaller pack vehicles suggest that Tesla is not battery constrained as in the past?
Well, I'd just like to emphasize, any mining companies out there, please mine more nickel. Okay. Wherever you are in the world, please mine more nickel. Tesla will give you a giant contract for a long period of time. Hopefully this message goes out to all mining companies. Please get nickel.
So instead of thinking about Tesla as a car company, instead of thinking about Tesla as a software company or a robotaxi company, let's think about Tesla as a battery company. That Tesla is going to be producing gigawatt hours of batteries, and that amount of gigawatt hours produced is going to grow. And let's go with that 50% a year increase in production. Now, I'm going to make an assumption again. So the question is, how does Tesla maximize, instead of thinking about maximizing profit for a vehicle, instead of thinking about making profits in dollars per mile, what if we thought about it in terms of dollars per kilowatt hour? or dollars per megawatt hour of battery production. And then the question is, how does Tesla optimally distribute batteries to the various applications it's developing to maximize profit and to maximize the acceleration of our transition to sustainable energy? As I've said before multiple times, I do not believe that the long-term Robotaxi will be as big as a Model 3 or Model Y. I believe that ultimately the ultimate robocar, the ultimate Robotaxi, will be a single passenger pod car Robotaxi. Why? Because it will be able to take someone from point A to point B using the smallest battery pack. And if you have I'm going to use 20, right now the typical Tesla has, let's say, a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. If instead you develop vehicles that use 20 kilowatt hour packs, and you produce 3 times as many vehicles, you take 3 times as many people from destination A to destination B, and you displace 3 times as many internal combustion engine vehicles. You reduce pollution 3 times as much if you're able to accomplish the same mission with a smaller battery pack. And this creates an interesting challenge, which I'm not going to address in that video. I think that's going to be for a future video. I know a lot of people are big on Tesla Energy, and I think Tesla Energy is an important step to the future, but is the dollars per kilowatt hour produced by Tesla Energy, by grid storage, as much as the dollars per kilowatt hour produced by transportation? And not just dollars per kilowatt hour, is the reduction in use of fossil fuels greater? I believe that robotaxis are such a revolutionary change in our society, absolutely insane how big this is going to be, that is going to accelerate our transition to sustainable energy even more, radically more than Tesla Energy. I think Tesla Energy is great. I think they should continue building it, but I think it's insane to devote large numbers of batteries to Tesla Energy when those same batteries accomplish more in robotaxis. So let's get to some numbers. Suppose, and I'm making up this number, I don't know what the number is, I don't know if it's 50 gigawatt hours or 100 gigawatt hours, but let's say in 2021, Tesla produces 50 gigawatt hours of batteries. Keep in mind, I'm talking about Tesla producing batteries. Tesla is also buying batteries from others, particularly CATL and I think at least 1 or 2 other companies. I'm using 50 because it made the numbers work. I think it actually might be 100 gigawatt hours in 2021 or more, but let's start with 50. Those are conservative numbers. That reduces the profit numbers that I'm going to come up with. So if Tesla produces 50 gigawatt hours of batteries in 2021 and its battery production increases 50% a year, then by 2030, Tesla will be at the magic 2 terawatt hours of batteries produced. That's the number that Elon has talked about. In 2025, Tesla will be producing 250 gigawatt hours of batteries. Now, I think we may see a step change. I think whatever Tesla's doing in their skunk works, whatever's happening in Fremont, there's some new battery cell lines being developed. There may be a big step change, and we might see a much larger number of batteries produced soon. But let's go with these numbers because they're conservative. So the question is, if Tesla's average vehicle has a 50 kilowatt hour pack, and you produce 50 gigawatt hours of batteries, that means you're able to produce 1 million vehicles. And we're going to use my Wall Street numbers. If you produce 1 million vehicles and you make $30,000 a vehicle, then you end up with profit of $30 billion in 2021. You end up with a market cap of $900 billion, and Tesla's share price is $4,500. That's one way of looking at it. If you follow this approach with profit of $30,000 a vehicle, 50 kilowatt hour packs, you end up in 2025 with 5 million vehicles produced and a $60,000 share price at a $12 trillion market cap. And in 2030, you've produced 2 terawatt hours of batteries, 38 million vehicles using those 2 terawatt hours of batteries, $3.4 trillion in profit, and a share price of $500,000. If you follow what I'm saying and you say, you know what, we can accelerate the transition to sustainable energy by going to 25 kilowatt hour packs. We'll produce twice as many vehicles. We're battery constrained. If we go to 25 kilowatt hour packs and we go with vehicles that are hyper efficient, smaller vehicles that weigh less, that enabled you to get 200 plus miles of range out of a 25 kilowatt hour pack. Then in 2021, you produced 2 million vehicles instead of 1 million vehicles. I don't think we're going to make the transition to this 25 kilowatt hour pack approach yet. I think that's going to come in a few years, but for the simplicity of the model, that's the way I'm approaching it. You have 2 million vehicles, you make $40 billion in profit at $20,000. Now you've reduced your profit to $20,000 a vehicle is the approach I'm taking. When you go to smaller packs, you're making less profit per vehicle. I think it's right. Maybe you make more profit per vehicle, but let's just go with this. So you get $40 billion in profit that year. You have a market cap of $1.2 trillion, and Tesla is already worth $6,000 a share. The next year, you've produced 3 million vehicles. Your total vehicles is now 5 million vehicles because you're adding the 2 million from the previous year to the 3 million, and you're making $20,000 per Robotaxi. You make $100 billion in profit in 2022. Market cap's $3 trillion. Share price is already 15,000. Stretch that out to 2025. In 2025, Tesla produces 10 million vehicles with 25 kilowatt hour packs. The total number of vehicles is now 26 million robotaxis operating. They're making a profit of $500 billion a year. Market cap is now almost $16 trillion. And the share price is approaching $80,000 a share. Stretch it out to 2030. In 2030, Tesla produces 77 million vehicles. This is where you start to reach that limit of, is there a market for that many vehicles? And they have a total of 226 million robotaxis operating. That would get you to 4.5 trillion in profit, $136 trillion market cap, and a share price of $680,000. Now, I'm not saying that's reasonable. I'm just saying that's a way of looking at it. Keep in mind, by doing what we're doing here, Tesla is lowering the cost. In order to get that profit down to $20,000 a vehicle, the price per mile is dropped. You're not getting $1 a mile anymore. You're getting maybe 60 cents a mile, but your cost per mile on the vehicle is down to 10 cents a mile or less. So you're still potentially making substantial profits on that vehicle. Let's take it a step further. Let's say Tesla goes hyper efficient and they go with my pod car, and I'm not going to go with a 10 kilowatt hour pack. Let's say they go with a 15 kilowatt hour pack. I think ultimately we may see pod car robotaxis with 10 kilowatt hour packs. You can make 5 times as many vehicles. But let's go with 15 kilowatt hours. And you're dividing that 50 gigawatt hours in the first year by 15 kilowatt hours, you get 3.3 million vehicles produced. You get a profit of $50 billion in that first year, 2021. Market cap's 1.5 trillion, and Tesla's worth $7,500 a share. Stretch that out to 2025. Tesla produces nearly 17 million vehicles. We're talking about pod car robotaxis. I know this is an oversimplified model, but Tesla produces 17 million vehicles and has 44 million robotaxis in the network on the road serving people. You drop the profit to $15,000 a robotaxi per year. You could go down to 10 kilowatt hour packs and $10,000 profit. You can play games with this all you want, but I'm just doing some kind of modeling here. You get $659 billion in profit. You get a market cap of $20 trillion. And you get a share price of $99,000. That's in 2025. Stretch this out to 2030. Tesla produces 128 million single-passenger pod car robotaxis with 15 kilowatt hour packs. Makes a profit of nearly $6 trillion. Market cap is now $170 trillion. And you've got a share price of $850,000 a share. That's the model. Models aren't perfect. You're always going to see quirks with models and things that don't make sense with models. And I think it seems unlikely we're going to see a market cap of $170 trillion or $6 trillion in profit. There will be things that limit this. But you got to look at the other side of this. If Tesla is able to, let's say Tesla does shift to this pod car robotaxi model, and they're able to get the cost per mile down below $1 a mile, down below 50 cents a mile. Let's say they get the cost down to 25 cents a mile. If Tesla is able to get the cost down to 25 cents a mile, more people will take more trips because you've cut the cost of travel. In the United States, and I think in Western Europe, the average person pays about 60 cents a mile for owning their own car and driving it around. And they drive less because of that cost per mile that it costs them. If you are able to get the cost of transportation down to 25 cents a mile, if you are able to make transportation more convenient, because the robotaxi model is more convenient. You never have to take your car for an oil change. You never have to fill the tank. You never have to replace tires. You don't have to worry about windshield wipers. The Robotaxi business takes care of all of that at a lower cost per mile than you would spend if you did it yourself. Then this radically expands the freedom people have to travel. You put screens in there and let people play video games while they're traveling. You connect them to the internet with a Starlink or however you do it, or a 5G connection. This could be the most radical change in society. And I'm predicting this. In 2030, our world will be so different. We can't even, it's going to change more in the next 10 years than it changed in the last 100. It's going to be mind-boggling how our world is going to be. We're going to have people on Mars. We're going to all be riding around in single-passenger pod-car robo-taxis. We're going to have Neuralinks in our brains. We're going to be riding around in tunnels going 150 miles around town at 600 miles an hour in these tunnels going from city to city. The airline industry's dead. The car industry's dead. Commuter rail is dead. All these industries are shot. Tesla has taken over the world and made the world a better place for all of us. Everyone. Tesla minibus. I didn't even get into how a Tesla minibus is going to use a reasonable sized battery pack to carry 10 people, and that cost per mile is going to be even lower. That's going to get the cost per mile down to a nickel a mile or less. So poor people in India, poor people in Africa, poor people in other countries, poor people and homeless people in America, a lot of people who currently are mobility constricted will have much greater mobility. It is going to make our lives so much better. The biggest limiting factor, the biggest thing that it could impair Tesla's share price, and at the same time impair the transition to sustainable energy, and at the same time clean the air so that people in China can breathe. All of these massive changes, the biggest threat is government. If you believe that big government is going to make the world better, then why didn't they do this already? It is capitalism. It is innovation that comes from freedom that is making this innovation we are seeing in front of our eyes possible. And if you let government get in the way, they will jump at the opportunity to seize the profits, to seize control, and to impair, to protect old industries that pollute. That is what politicians do, and we need you, the people, to say no. We want Tesla to flourish. We want Tesla to grow because it's making our world a better place. This is about making the world a better place. And if you take away the incentive for investors to invest in companies that make the world a better place, there will be fewer companies making the world a better place. Getting back to the point here, I've laid out for you multiple ways, 3 different models of how Tesla's share price is going to grow, how Tesla's going to grow, and how it's going to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. I'm tired of people saying, well, I don't want my people riding in my car. I'm going to keep it in the garage. Well, you're not accelerating the transition to sustainable energy if you buy an electric vehicle and you keep it in the garage. You're accelerating the transition to sustainable energy if you send the vehicle out there and it operates 10 times as much as it would have if it was just you. If you use your vehicle to serve others, you will make money and you will make the world a better place. Robotaxi model is the future. You're probably not going to bother buying one. You're probably going to be happy to ride around. There's certain businesses like contractors who need their tools with them. I haven't figured out how that model works. Are they just driving beat up old gasoline and diesel trucks? Are they going to get cyber trucks? I don't know. Cyber trucks are going to be so valuable, it's hard to imagine the typical contractor using them. That's an interesting problem. I don't have an answer to it. It may be that you have a tray with all your tools on it, and when the Cybertruck comes and picks you up, it has a winch and it pulls the tools up into the bed, and you rent the Cybertruck for your trip over and you call it again when you're going to go back. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. On the plain and simple Robotaxi model, and I think this is a really interesting question, if you think about Tesla as a battery company and you maximize profit per kilowatt hour and using that as a proxy for maximizing our reduction in fossil fuel consumption and our reduction in the pollution of fossil fuels. This is a really innovative way of looking at it. I'm going to do another video on that down the road. I'd love to see your responses. Please comment. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. Tell me how much you think I'm wrong. I am projecting a Tesla share price in 2030 of $100,000 a share, and that's conservative compared to the numbers in my models. It's extremely conservative compared to the numbers in my models. And I believe the numbers in my models are probably wrong for some reason, but I haven't figured it out yet. So tell me. If you want to talk about radical change, check out Neuralink. This is amazing. People love this video. so many other things to watch.
I just created a Patreon account. I reduced the number of ads in this video. And the Patreon link is in the description below. Thank you.
So have a great evening and enjoy the test drives.